Okay, let's start then. So thank you very much for coming to this last gathering of the Contribution Seminar this year. So we already had 4 meetings, and so today is our last meeting. So and we are very happy that Professor Kalevi Kull will be giving a talk to us today. So obviously Professor Kull does not need any introduction here in Tartu, but since we're having this live stream, I will say just a couple of words about him. So Professor Kalevi Kull is the head of the Department of Semiotics at the University of Tartu, and his main interest is biosemiotics, and well, biosemiotics is a new growing field of research which attempts to combine semiotics and biology, say evolutionary biology, and trying to find how science processes work within an organism, for example, or how different principles studied in biology can be applied for the study of other domains of life, say culture. But other of his interests include ecosemiotics, theory of evolution, theoretical biology, and also history and philosophy of life sciences. So also Professor Kull is the editor of the journal Science System Studies and co-editor of book series Semiotics, Communication, Cognition at Big Reader and Biosemiotics at Springer Publishing House. And his publications include papers in journals like Semiotica, Science System Studies, Biosemiotics, and many, many others. So, and today he will be speaking about what kind of evolutionary biology suits cultural sciences, and we're expecting very interesting and provocative talk. Thank you very much. So please welcome Professor Kull.
Thank you so much. So this seminar series is about cultural evolution. Evolution, when anybody is speaking about this in any field, cannot avoid thinking about biological evolution. And certainly this cultural evolution approach has many links to biological studies of evolution. The main focus probably here should be what's in common, what there is in common in evolutionary processes in various systems, including culture and maybe other living systems. That was Michel Foucault in his Order of Things book, where he compared the history of ideas between linguistics, economics, and biology, say. And he demonstrated that there is so much in common in the development of ideas between these 3 sciences, say. And for a semiotician, it looks really obvious. There should be, because all these 3 sciences are actually studying semiotic systems: economics, linguistics, biology. Say, according to our contemporary view, all these systems are semiotic systems. Obviously, if these have anything in common, probably also in their evolution. So it's easy to assume that models can move from one area to another. Say, I would also add that just in these times now, this search for phenomena, ideas, models, what are in common in different areas, particularly between biology, ecology, and cultural sciences, is pretty widespread. I just visited a couple of weeks ago a conference in Italy called Semiotics 2.0, which was also searching for what's common between us and other animals this year. But now about what I'm going to tell you today is about changes in the views on evolution, particularly seen from biology, but that is really very much connected to that very problem. What kind of models are suitable for more universal approaches or approaches where we include cultural sciences. Thus, on the situation in evolutionary biology as it is now, then about the history of the views, and quite a bit, just my time will be devoted to that, how these ideas of understanding evolution in biology have been developed. And then particularly about a recent meeting in London, Royal Society, what has been described as a real change of paradigm in biology. I'm going to show some books, some materials to you so that you could, well, list or read these when the talk is not interesting meanwhile. And first, see at once the programs of this Royal Society meeting, and two books what have been published describing this current change and this meeting itself. Let me begin with 90-second piece from a talk given by Dennis Noble. Dennis Noble is a British physiologist, biologist, evolutionary biologist, who has been one of leaders of recent changes in biology. Say, let's try whether we can get to that. Just a moment. This will be short. That's just a conclusion of his lecture. He was also the main organizer of this Royal Society meeting. For symbiosis, or whether we should try to explain beginning from the elements or beginning from the whole. Another, say, set of ideas appeared in late 19th century. These are 3 papers published exactly one and the same year, 1896, all of which were saying that there is another factor, this, in addition to natural selection, what drives evolution, and that's learning. James Mark Baldwin is particularly known from these 3, but actually his major concept, organic selection as opposed to natural selection, It was even not first formulated by him, but by Henry Osborne. And here, Osborne's paper has particularly interesting title, A Mode of Evolution Requiring Neither Natural Selection nor the Inheritance of Acquired Characteristics. That means neither Lamarckian nor Darwinian. Further on, we could say that in the beginning of the 20th century, first decade, was sort of period when the supporters of Darwin's view in biology were really in minority. Because of new data coming from genetics, which is seen not to fit Darwin's views, popularity of neo-Vitalism, just the first decades of 20th century, again, were very critical towards Darwin's view. And then one more coming from Russia, that was Lev Berg's book about nomogenesis, evolution based on laws or directionality. You just maybe noticed that Danish Nobel's emphasis was that evolution is direction, if that new view is true. But that directionality idea comes, well, much later, of course. Here, in this book, Lev Berg again lists in opposition a whole series of statements. Some of them are here in English, comparing nomogenetic and Darwinian views to evolution. Like nomogenetic view, organisms have developed from tens of thousands of primary forms, polyphyletically. Darwinian view, all organisms have developed from one or few primary forms, monophyletically. Other subsequent evolution was chiefly convergent, only partly divergent. Darwinian view says subsequent evolution was divergent, say either on the basis of laws or on the basis of chance variation, either on the basis of again, just the last one more. The extinction of organisms is due to autonomic and holonomic causes, says Lev Berg. Darwinian view says extinction of organisms is due to external causes, and so on. This particular Lev Berg's nomogenetic approach created in Russia the whole school further on, followed by Alexander Lubishev, and then in 1970s a group of general biologists, Sergei May and Yuli Schrader and Tchaikovsky, and others, and I should say that when attending a meeting where these people presented their views on evolution in 1977, I felt first time really shift of a paradigm. That was a paradigm shift in theory of evolution. But that was, I would say, as later occurred, pretty local. That was well, in Soviet Union, biology, and only part of that. So maybe also you could say that when understanding that several of these critical views were already formulated by Baer, also some by Utsku, and left better. That view, the different view, has been simply in parallel existed for a very long time, and in that sense, we cannot really say that this is a paradigm shift at all. These are just different approaches to evolution. Anyhow, Lubitschev was in certain circles of philosophers, biologists in the Soviet Union quite influential, including, let me also mention that one of his papers has been published by Wortmann in Sciences and Studies here in Tartu. And say about semiotic details, say this book by Lubitschev, Lines of Democritus and Platon in the History of Culture, was the reason why one of the Estonian scientists published in the journal Semiotica paper titled Wortmann as Platonist. This is directly related to this. Say Lubitschev's influence goes. And Sergei Meyen was the person who was a leader of that alternative view in Russia in the 70s and 80s. Now, this relative non-popularity of Darwinism in the beginning of the 20th century, also the time when Lefebvre wrote his book, lasted not very long. So, particularly due to works in 1930s on population genetics and mathematical biology, led to fundamental works where natural selection mechanism was mathematically described. Several of statements of Darwinian theory of evolution were described via mathematical theorems, say, and in this way, also due to the possibility to integrate the genetic views to description of morphological evolution, a real rise of Darwinian view, so that 70 years after publishing Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, it became a dominant view in biology. It has been called neo-Darwinism, but to be precise, the word neo-Darwinism was first used by August Weismann, who experimentally demonstrated that inheritance of acquired characters is impossible. So, according to his experiments, it's well influencing certain animals throughout several generations. Say that influence didn't become inherited. And there were several data about that already, that if it doesn't come out, that you can inherit what has been learned. Then that meant that some part of Darwin's own views were ruled out. The Darwinian model became more precise and more narrow in a way. And the next stage for that was what was called then modern synthesis. The name modern synthesis comes from Julian Huxley's book of 42. And the whole bunch of leading evolutionary biologists supported that. And indeed, the whole second half of the 20th century has that modern synthesis was the major approach in theory of evolution. All textbooks are just describing that view, and it has really been very productive, effective, could integrate almost any data, any knowledge, what has been gathered about evolution. Nevertheless, some people now also in the West criticized at least some fundamental aspects in the evolution. One of them was Stephen Jay Gould, professor of paleontology in Harvard University, one of the best essayists and historians of biology in the last decades of the 20th century, certainly. And in his book, Ontogeny Anthology, what was actually his doctoral thesis, he compared von Baer's and Darwin's views. And this was, again, trying to show that, some important part of von Baer's critique to Darwin should be taken seriously. Evolutionary biology has during all its existence, been politicized, and that, of course, has made any critique pretty ideological and having additional aspects in addition to usual scientific debates. It has been needed to include either aspects of religion or some social models of social changes where evolutionary ideas have been applied, and its feedback from these areas influenced the debates in biology itself. One opposition, what Gould saw as maybe basic or most fundamental in this was opposition between structuralism and functionalism. And structuralism and, formalism in biology, he so strongly opposed to functionalism on the basis of different role attributed to adaptations in biological explanation. And this was the main opposition on which Stephen Jay Gould built his a very large book, the structure, the evolutionary theory. Now, this structuralist approach, which was in some occasions also called as structuralism in biology, was again one attempt to reformulate evolutionary theory. Say, particularly group, what has been called the Osaka group, some Japanese, some Italian scientists, some British, just quotation from them. And that's interesting because it relates biological approach to evolution with structuralism in cultural sciences. From Levi-Strauss anthropology, we can extract a series of conceptual oppositions which are relevant to the problem of biological form. Internal constraints versus external demands, reproduction versus inheritance, law-governed transformation versus accidental or random variation, the rational system of transformation, the structure versus a purely empirical temporal spatial order. The quotation goes on. Now, in relation to biology, if the first member of each pair of the concept is structuralist, then the second member is certainly Darwinist, in the sense in which the term was used in the late 19th century and to a considerable extent is used today, to refer to the theory of descent plus the theory of natural selection. This opposition of structuralism and Darwinism is not simply a debating device. In the first place, it is of historical significance for a number of early writers, William Bateson, Driesche, Darcy Thompson, who employed structuralist concepts, did so in the course of formulating critical evaluations of Darwinism. See, again, that was a group published, existed, but for mainstream biology, they were not very influential. Another group, now more recent, is working in or around Konrad Lorenz Institute of Theoretical Biology in Austria, close to Vienna, in Altenberg. And they have published now a couple of tens of volumes. This is one of theirs. Almost all, trying somehow to reformulate, or in some occasions oppose that modern synthesis view to evolution. Usually not in a very radical way, mostly just trying to add something, but in some cases also formulating the approach as need to replace Darwinian theory. Now more recent. I think these four ladies have been maybe most influential for this current change in understanding evolution. Elizabeth Grba, paleontologist, Lynn Margulis, zoologist, basically say, because the level of organization where she did studies was, say, the evolution of cell. Mary Jane West Eberhard, well, first of all, they are from the United States, she's from Costa Rica. Wrote this enormous book developmental plasticity and evolution. And Eva Jablonka from Israel. So what, very briefly, they did. Elizabeth Brown, one very important conclusions. In addition to advantageous mutation, novelty by exaptation is important. Shifts in exaptation is a shift in the function of a trait during evolution. Say that it's not just random mutations, but what are causes of innovation in living systems, but also shift in function. Existing function can be used, changed. Certain organ can be used in a new purpose, which comes, starts, as you understand, from not from genes, but from so that concept of exaptation was formulated by Elizabeth Brown together with Stephen J. Gould. And the other interesting and important is that she was the one who found Hugh Patterson's works on recognition and concept of species, and she wrote about and spoke about that work, because initially, again, interestingly, Patterson was an entomologist in South Africa and published only in local South African journal in biology, a small journal never read by American scientists. And Bar was somehow came across with that, understood this is so very important. This is about the different views to species, in this way also influencing the behavior of change. Now, with Margulis, symbiosis is the source of evolutionary innovation. Just cooperation may create new characteristics. Symbiosis first, genes later. Famous quote from Sir: life didn't take over the globe by combat, but by network, by cooperation. Now, West Eberhard, nowadays already famous quote: genes are followers, not leaders in evolution. That means evolution begins not from genes. Genes, yes, they will change, but they are only followers of innovation. So, as embryologist, she has studied the phenomenon of plasticity, and say that book is about that. So, here is a book by Margulis. And Eva Jablonka, she has studied epigenetic inheritance, the very mechanism of epigenetic inheritance, how it is possible that sometimes, say, what is acquired during the lifetime without any change in genes may be inherited, and the same characteristics appear in at least in several next generations. So this is about methylation mechanisms of the genome in particular, but more. She wrote about the idea that there are more modes of inheritance. So, and due to her, we have this term, epigenetic term. Epigenetic oriented approaches to evolution won't have the developing phenotype rather than the gene as their starting point, and focus on aspects of development that lead to flexibility and adjustment when the environment of the genome changes. Although their roots are old, these approaches became influential during the 1990s and today are an important part of the alternative view on evolution that is taking shape. We call this revival, extension, and elaboration of the genetic approaches to evolution the epigenetic term. Say why this term is important. We can say that this is the change from reformationist view to epigenetic view, which is rather fundamental for understanding how organisms develop. According to reformationist view, organism is a product of genetic program, and meaning making is illusionary. According to epigenetics view, organism is the interpreter of genome and self-design, and meaning making is real. See, one way to make a classification between these different views on evolution is proposing 4 basic types. And important distinction here is what is first, what is from where the evolutionary change starts, either from genetic change or from epigenetic or learning. And then the other aspect, whether mutations, what change genes are assumed to be random or non-random. According to this classification, we have, strictly speaking, Lamarckian view, the one where acquired characters are inherited due to non-random mutations. And neo-Darwinian view, where we have random mutations and not without any acquired characteristics. That means learning doesn't play a role here. Now, while there are other 2 versions, say one Thomas and Morgan's view, where it's assumed that pigmentation itself is at once adaptive, and then it's Darwinian or organic selection view, and this is the one what is most close to, let's say, Eva Jarlotas, and actually I would say for the all 4 scientists' view. Now, about this recent meeting. This was organized by Royal Society in London, together with British Academy. Royal Society is the oldest, most institution of the highest reputation in Britain, being responsible for natural sciences, while British Academy is institution for humanities, social sciences. So that's first nice and interesting that they too organized this meeting together, what doesn't happen so often. Here, besides James Noble, there are a couple of more organizers and few words more about now these people and views expressed. Dennis Noble, he has published the book The Music of Life, and by the way now translated to more than a dozen languages, including Estonian, in which he tries to replace metaphors used in biological discourse. He takes metaphors introduced by Richard Dawkins one by one, analyzes these and formulates alternative metaphors. Understandable, particularly in case of applications of biological theories. This way how it's presented in metaphors, what are used, are certainly very important. Moreover, Dennis Noble is one of pioneers of systems biology. The main idea of systems biology is that there exist phenomena what appear only on the level of whole. Like, well, he himself has studied the work of heart, animal heart, human heart, and say the mechanism what creates its rhythmicity. And, well, demonstrating that you cannot, there are no elements, no single separate elements or cells where what are separate, responsible for rhythm. The rhythm appears only due to, or as a holistic effect, say, due to network what is there. Well, with all these details. But this is, of course, very general for many emerging phenomena in living systems, that these can be explained on the basis of holistic approach. So that's the idea of systems biology. That means non-reductionistic approach. And this is also what he tries to apply to evolution. And just last month there was his new book called Dance to the Tune of Life, Biological Relativity. He was started to organize this conference a couple of years ago. It occurred that it was a difficult process. And when already some time ago, arriving these views and publishing, he understood that this it's very hard to get accepted if he is doing that alone. In case of self-fundamental change in evolutionary views, particularly. And so he organized in the internet portal called the Third Way of Evolution. Evolution in the era of genomics and epigenomics was the subtitle of the Third Way of Evolution, where he gathered more than 50 scholars with links to their and small short descriptions of their works, who more or less supported all this critical to modern synthesis view. And that was one of events before this meeting in Royal Society. Other was 2011, 5 years earlier, meeting in a linear society. So exactly the same room where Darwin and Wallace presented their work between 1858, called the role of behavior in evolution, subtitle, organisms can be proud to have been their own designers, and where some of the same people who presented now were already presenting, and where actually we can see, say, the paradigm shift happened in a smaller group. Say, that means here Dennis Noble, we can see is has been active in attempting to make a change together with many people who whose approach is similarly critical. Eva Jablonka, talking in this conference, and her book, it's already somewhere here, book called Evolution in 4 Dimensions. Its main idea is that there are at least 4 important modes of inheritance. Besides genetic, there is epigenetic, there is behavioral, based on social learning, and symbolic, based on transmission through language and other forms of symbolic communication. That's cultural. So, that means this earlier opposition between either genetic or cultural and nothing else is not true. Say, there are from biological side, in addition to genetic, also epigenetic, and also based on social learning and its behavior. And that means that any definition of culture, what somehow is based or using the characteristic of inheritance, say, would not be true. By the way, that's how you remember a lot of them first defined culture using that name. A characteristic culture is where inheritance can be non-genetic. But as it occurs, that non-genetic inheritance Gerd Müller, director of Konrad Institute in Altenberg. And he is one of those who uses this name extended synthesis. Extended synthesis now replacing modern synthesis. Extended synthesis, you may see, may be read in different ways. One way is just its next step in synthesis. Because modern synthesis, and let's go on with modern synthesis, let's extend it. But also it can be interpreted as replacing modern synthesis. Due to difficult political situation in evolutionary debates, this title works pretty well, because, well, some people read it as just further extension of synthesis, or some other as replacement. Here, first moderating the session, Patrick Bateson, and behind talking James Shapiro. James Shapiro is the author of the book Evolution, a View from the 21st Century. Just one quote from this book. Living cells and organisms are cognitive, sentient entities that act and interact purposefully to ensure survival, growth, and proliferation. They possess corresponding sensory communication, information processing, and decision-making capabilities. So, very close to our semiotic view to life. So, this book, yeah? These are people, 300 participants in this conference. And this debate is now already on the pages of Nature. For natural scientists, journal Nature is something absolutely. So if you publish a view there, then say that's, yeah, you have a reputation. And just 2014, there was this interesting double article. Does evolutionary theory mean everything? And then two articles. One article having subtitle, yes, urgently. Another, no, all is well. Different authors. There were a whole group of authors. So the first, led by Kevin Laland. Kevin Laland, who has written much about niche construction, idea and model, and say then the other group, among them Douglas Fortuima, who was also present in this conference and well, representing the modern synthesis view. So here we arrive at niche construction idea. What became well known by our works of John Hodling Smith. Now, Kevin Laland is a major proponent of this niche construction. Niche construction can be minimally defined as the process whereby organisms modify their own and other organisms' selective environment to such a degree that it changes the selection pressures acting on present and future generations of niche construction also treated inheritance theory. I mean, it's again more modes of inheritance, and organisms themselves can influence their own evolution via, say, yeah, changes what they cause in their environment. And this is the scheme from Odin Smith, what now became already more or less textbook scheme, where it showed that, well, time goes this way here, organisms usually in, well, most of population genetic works, most of modern synthesis works are actually represented by a gene pool, well, by a population's genophone. So change in this means evolution. So, and now here the factors. So of course natural selection can influence the gene pool, but so since organisms can influence their own environment, so that has a feedback via natural selection to themselves. So at least in this way, organisms themselves can somehow regulate their own natural selection. However, so okay, another scheme now with three modes of inheritance were also culturally included. That phenotype including culture is here added, and cultural inheritance added besides genetic and ecological inheritance. So, nevertheless, here in this mechanism, still natural selection is inevitable part. And in that sense, Kevin Mallard's approach is not among the most radical ones, say, because he just cannot build that scheme without natural selection. And in that sense, it is as if really a little bit extending with factor, but not really replacing the theory. We can say that this is just one. Let's put it like this: that there, among these people who have been gathered by Dennis Noble to collectively demonstrate that modern synthesis view or neo-Darwinian view has to be replaced, the models proposed are, well, slightly different. And some are, well, they are describing different aspects, different factors, and maybe even up to now, say they are not integrated into, that kind of whole that could replace the textbooks, what have been written. I do think that semiotic approach would be the most fundamental and best here in order to achieve that aim. And in that case, it will be easier to see in what way the earlier existing theories can be the special cases of a more integrative, more fundamental view. And also, of course, if it is based on semiotics, we can be sure that what we take is for cultural sciences would not be misleading from its very basis. So, in this case, we can look on organisms, on populations, as basically with their life process, the main thing what they are doing, they are interpreting their genome, their environment, well, partner organisms and so on. In that process, they are inevitably learning and habituating, and there are several modes of inheritance what may or may not carry on these changes to next generations. I will not describe the details more, or say, I think these aspects already described by these scholars I showed briefly here described are enough for today. Simply here, well, listing some statements that should be important to take into account. That formation of life is the formation of modeling relations, which is, you understand, related to learning all the time. New semiotic bonds appear by learning. Natural selection, which either kills or amplifies, is not responsible for innovation. And inheritance, mainly, let's see what we have here. Which includes a little additional idea. When I say that life does not require evolution, evolution just happens. Life has almost no mechanisms to avoid evolution. And this we understand when we understand that and that concerns all organisms. They cannot stop learning. Learning happens. So they cannot stop really that something becomes inherited. Eva Jablonka, in the end of this conference, said this. The first question to be asked is how a social system, well, all institutions are connected and have social systems, but three in particular had in mind human social system. The first question to be asked is how a social system is maintained across time. Once this is understood, we will start to study how is it changing or how to change it. That means for living systems, the question how these are stable at all is maybe more difficult to understand than to understand their change. To understand how, in which conditions, how it is possible that we keep alive, is first thing we need to understand before going to the mechanism of evolution. Or maybe one more important way to understand this statement. If in modern synthesis, its leaders have said everything in biology makes sense only in the light of evolution, here what is said, it's not said. Evolution is not the primary thing to understand. Evolution is not the way in which we need to explain. Evolution is just one of the features, but not the practical. See, very last, I was surprised that this quotation has been assigned to Karl von Baer. All new ideas pass through 3 stages. First, they are dismissed as nonsense. Then they are rejected as being against religion. And finally, they are acknowledged as true with the proviso from the initial opponents that they knew it all along. Okay. Thank you.
Right, time for questions. So, would like to ask the first one.
Yeah. I have many questions about this extended synthesis, but because of it being culture evolution seminar, maybe the first one would be that what would be the status of culture here? Does culture work? Would culture learn in a similar way as organisms, or should we make a sharp distinction between these cultural traditions and living organisms? According to your opinion, of course.
Well, particularly using the model of Venetian construction, we can see how much there is in common. Say, and according to this, what I described, I wanted to say that just culture is one special living system. What follows almost everything what's said. It may have some additional features, yes, but almost everything, all these mechanisms, what are working according to this integrated view, also work for cultural evolution. Yeah. It's on this level, even maybe not so easy to say what is different. Okay, speed is different. Okay, everything what comes from language itself is different, of course.
But we could attribute some agency to culture in this sense.
Agency is there for all of those organisms, according to this view. Say the organism solve problems, they search, they make artifacts, organisms make artifacts. That's in common.
Have you meant, Peter, is it like a follow-up question that, for instance, if we, because there's something that is very interesting to me, that if we consider, say, human culture as this, I don't know, in Margulis terms, it's like Gaia, I guess, right? Was she one? Or if like some cultural evolutionists are speaking about, I don't know, like global brain kind of, so something that resembles semiosphere too, but so society is forming like one big organism. Can we say that, can we attribute some intentionality to
Can we
this
say
one?
that the society perceives, for example, or interprets? Can we say that this society, this Gaia, interprets the world in this sense, or maybe it is?
See, okay, in case of living systems, no organism is never alone. They are always in society, in all levels. See, they all interpret. They all have certain intentionality. Again, we assign these features to all organisms. Well, Gaia is a little bit different here. I wouldn't use actually that because that comes more from Lovelock than from Margulis herself. For Margulis, the idea is, well, widespread symbiosis and holistic aspect is really important for self-regulation also. But as Gaia, in terms of Lovelock, it's already maybe, let's leave it on the level of ecosystem, would be much better. So, because ecosystem has most of these the same features. And now, if to try to make sort of by definition a very precise distinction between organism and ecosystem, it's almost impossible to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the core ideas, I think, in culture evolution is that they try to look at these elements of culture that are socially learned and how they are inherited through time, but they, in a sense, exclude the organism from the equation. So it is in these cases, the cultural elements are quite passive and taken separately from the ecosystem. Which I suppose you would think that it's a bad approach, probably, to take.
Yeah. Here, in cultural evolution, of course, both models are applied. This neo-Darwinian model sometimes, and also epigenetic models, and it's easy to mix them up. Say, in case of neo-Darwinian model, say the main process, what is assumed to be on the basis is copying and the errors in copying. Say, and there are just certain artifacts which are copied for next generation, and sometimes the copying is not precise, but with some noise or so to say errors, and these are say they are corresponding to mutations in this population genetic. And in this case, indeed, the description is based on, say, a neo-Darwinian population genetic model. Now, the terms are, replaced, like in this case of the gene, they speak about memes, say, but the mechanism is the same. The meme is copied and meme is changed due to the errors in copying, basically. The random changes in form. And so the resulting mechanism is exactly natural selection mechanism. Now, in case of epigenetic, which already assumes organisms as agents, then any new is not just copied, but maximally imitated, and this is the form of interpretation and not copying. So imitation is one particular type of interpretation. You choose what to build. So that is in that case, this is not just saying that the form is copying itself or copying cycle, but the agent is choosing what form, what structure to take for rebuilding, building a new set. And in that sense, imitation and copying look from a distance very similar, maybe, but they are fundamentally different.
I agree, yes.
Ma räägin meie kaunist keelest, ma väga kandesti palun, et eesistuja tõlgiks sellele osale rahvast, kes eesti keelega rahul ei ole. Esiteks märkus eesti keeles jätkumine ja säilimine ei ole sama. Jätkuda võib muutudes ja kogunisti muundudes, seda maintainist minu kõrvus tähendab põhiliselt valdamisi jätkuda sellisena nagu miski ese ehk olend on. Aga küsimus oli üks oletus ehk hüpotees küsimus sinu lõpu väite suhtes, kas see, sa väidad arengu vabatahtlikkusse, et no võib areneda, ei ole sunnitud arenema just meie planeedi suhtes ja kui meie planeedi suhtes, et kas teatud ajajärgu suhtes ehk kas elusus on võinud säilida ilma elusate olendite arenemata.
Ei.
Okay.
Whether being alive can have been preserved without a living itself? That was the question. Answer was no.
Aga oletus ehk hüpotees korra ja hajususe suhe võis erineda meie planeedi ajaloo erinevatel järkudel.
Okay. Yeah, I also have some questions. So if there's no other questions from the audience, for instance, it seems to me that there are two very different standard or mainstream views on the historical development of forms in biology and in general studies of culture. So in biology, the standard view is that, well, the changes are random and then the selection happens. And in culture, I think, if you ask, I don't know, like a literary historian or any kind of historian, he would mainly say that no, all the changes are intentional, in fact, that, okay, this author wrote this text because it was his intention or something like this, or I don't know, just his genius or something like that. And can we say that, so for biology, it would be, in fact, of course, quite revolutionary and very interesting to oppose this view that not everything is random or pretty much nothing is random. But in case of culture, I think it also can benefit from bringing the question that, well, some forces are random in culture too. And I think that if you say this to a cultural historian, it will immediately provoke some, I don't know, disagreement. Although, I don't know, there are a lot of random inventions, for instance, in culture, which are also part of the kind of resemble mutation. So, like, do you still agree that to some extent the standard view is correct, that some of the mutations do happen randomly and some other forces are intentional? And in culture maybe the same, so we just need the balance.
Yes. Yes. So exactly like this, say that we shouldn't deny the importance of the mechanism where random changes occur, or have, sometimes quite important role, of course, yes. But this is not the only mechanism for biological sphere, and of course this is the mechanism. We even can say just the mechanism of natural selection obviously works, but simply it may not be the main mechanism, and in some cases just other mechanism is the main one. mechanism of natural selection is a special case for evolutionary changes in living systems. Standard theory said this is the only mechanism what can be responsible for adaptive changes. Say, in addition to adaptive changes in evolution, there can be just random changes, or non-adaptive changes of form, of phenotype. So this was well accepted very widely in the 1960s and 70s after understanding this molecular evolution. So that that random drift, simply drift, may also be responsible for many changes. But with adaptive changes, these adaptive changes are always due to natural selection. That was, and that's more or less up to now the statement of standard theory. But now, what's in addition now, or what is new, is adaptive changes can happen without natural selection on the basis of other factors. And so that means that it is possible to have adaptive changes which are not based on natural selection. And that is, well, what happens very often in culture. It's fair. But it occurs also in other ways.
It's very interesting that now we have even these very obvious examples of how phenotype can change genotype, which is basically just gene editing.
Yeah.
So this is most explicit example of how we can change genes directly.
Yeah, but it's gene editing is well pretty sophisticated in the sense that it is not really saying that there is a model how to change it and how the organism can do it accordingly. No, organism can simply harness the stochasticity at that level. That was what Dennis Noble's statement was. Say that, for instance, say the reparation process on the level of genome is basically active process from the side of the cell. Now, random mutations in density of frequency is very high. Most of mutations are repaired before they would really be translated. Now, cell may repair in the genome, not the all parts in the same way. Just in some parts it may repair more precisely, better, more repeatedly. In some other part of genome, not so much. That is one way to change the mutation rate actively, so to say. And that is now, or to make some part of genome more open for mutations than the other. That's in a way harnessing stochasticity, and that's almost all what cell in that sense can do. Of course, also changing the parts between different genomes. Yes, so exchange. But again, that's not really in the gene engineering way that just let's take this piece and replace with that. No, it's just harnessing somehow, regulating the stochasticity itself, but no more.
I'm wondering if we include this harnessing stochasticity, this this integrated semiotic model of evolution as the foundation for biology. How big are the implications for the quantitative models that they have made of evolution and ecological systems now? Is it do they have to be redone, most of them? Because
I think so.
But is it possible to do it?
Well, the problem of holistic use that it's hard to take pieces out of them, probably.
Not enough work has been done comparing, testing between these different models, different methods. That's the work ahead.
So if you
Of course, the natural selection mechanism is very, very powerful in that sense that actually, theoretically, you can apply it to almost anything. Yeah. And if you do not have alternative mechanisms to compare, say, you just go on with that all the time.
So new field almost to all these studies. Other questions?
Peaks selle ettekande viimase lehekülge uuesti, et ma loeksin üle selle sinu väite, et areng just juhtub. Jah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so if we have no questions, then thank you very much again.
Thank you.